Let's talk about some news. And of course, the main thing is this guy. This guy was a college student, or I think he was an ex-college student, but he was a Columbia student. He was an activist. He was leading the anti-Israel protests, trying to protest what they're doing in Gaza. And so the important thing is Trump has arrested him, and they are trying to cancel his citizenship. He was a green card holder. He wasn't a full citizen, and deport him. And they say they're going to do a lot more like this. And the important thing is he is not accused of any crime. They don't even accuse him of breaking the law. They merely say, you hold a political position which is contrary to the one the government approves of, therefore you're deported. And he said, any college that does not aid us in locating these people so we can deport them will lose all their federal funding. So this is pretty gruesome, and this has all happened before. This is straight up fascism. This is to spread fear among the students and fear among college administrators. And I can tell you, as a professional, college administrators have no morals at all and no strength at all. They blow with the wind. And like I say, this has happened before, and the famous one was, should be here, somewhere I should have it. The Berkeley Loyalty Oath is the famous one, and thought I had a page showing it, but maybe I can't find it. All right, somehow it's gone. Let me bring it up here. It should be in my news. There, this is the one. So this all happened before, when we had a very similar regime to the one now in the 1950s, when we had Joe McCarthy, who was very much like Trump. He was full of lies. He claimed there were all these communists everywhere, and he couldn't prove it because it wasn't true, just like Trump claims all these immigrants are voting, which they are not. And so he pressured the colleges, and UC Berkeley forced every person at the college to swear an royalty oath. And there were quite a few of them that were communists. A lot of intellectuals are communists, just like now a lot of intellectuals are socialists. And a lot of intellectuals have serious criticism of the U.S. government for a lot of reasons, especially now that we're going against Ukraine. And they're doing a lot of bad things. And so Berkeley required everybody to sign this loyalty oath or you would be fired. So everybody who was skilled left Berkeley. All the Nobel laureates left, many of them, all the people that could get another job, they all left. And this was a huge problem at UC Berkeley. After that, all the good researchers were gone. All they had was the second-tier people who couldn't get another job. That's why they signed this oath. And so for like a decade, Berkeley was starved for intellectual strength. And in order to fix that, a financier named Miller started something called the Miller Fellowship to fund graduate students to come to Berkeley to try to refill the population. And later on in the 80s or 90s, I was one of them. I was one of the Miller Fellows. I had that fellowship for 3 years. That's how I came to California. And I didn't know anything about the history of it until after I got here, but that's why it existed. He was a huge banker or something, and he set up this fund to bring in new grad students to try to bring in some fresh intellectual at Berkeley. It's just totally damaged the intellectual structure of Berkeley when they did this. But we're absolutely headed back there. And you'll see McCarthy. Joe McCarthy was the congressman that did all this. He was very much like Trump. He was an alcoholic, which Trump unfortunately is not, but he was also extremely racist and extremely anti-communist. And he claimed that there were, he carried around this pack of paper, and he said, I have the list here of 300 people in the government that are communist agents working against us, paid by our enemies. And you know,
so the congressman with the university to...
He was from, I think, Minnesota. He was a congressman, and he created this commission in the Congress, the House Un-American Activities Commission, which held hearings, and they would bring people in and they would interrogate them to see if they were communist. And if they were, they would get blacklisted. And a whole lot of people were ruined by this. Like the guy that wrote I think the Maltese Falcon, Dashiell Hammett, was a writer, and he was writing mystery stories, and he started writing movies, but he was a communist. He got held up before HUAC. This is how we got Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan moved into politics because of HUAC. They went to the Actors Guild, and Ronald Reagan was the head of the Screen Actors Guild, and they said, you need to find the communists and betray them and turn them over to us. And he did that, and he said, hey, this is politics. I like this, because he hated communism. That was always his lifelong passion. That's why when he got the Berlin Wall to come down, that was his huge accomplishment. So he became president on this. And there's a whole line of these far-right figures in American history, from Joe McCarthy. Joe McCarthy's lawyer was the lawyer who trained Donald Trump how to do what he did, Roy Cohn. His lawyer was Roy Cohn, and Roy Cohn developed this technique of just lying all the time and making fake accusations, and he became Donald Trump's lawyer, and he told Donald Trump, you never admit you're wrong, you never admit you lose, you lie all the time, you just keep yelling louder and louder until people believe it. He taught this to Donald Trump. And so there's a chain of people, an unbroken chain of them leading to our current fascists, and they go back to the people who wanted us to be on Hitler's side in World War II, like the guy that made the cars, Henry Ford, and the guy with the airplanes who ran for president. Not Boeing. There was Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh, the first guy to fly around the world or across the ocean. Lindbergh was a presidential candidate as a fascist in order to join forces with Hitler. And they had a whole bunch of actual paid Hitler agents in the 40s. So we've always had this strain of far-right stuff in American politics. And it's, in fact, you can see it going from person to person. The prominent figures did, in fact, learn from each other and follow each other. So the struggle we're doing right now is just a struggle we've had all along. And it also connects to the original Civil War, the war between the North and the South. And so it's, this is nothing new. Basically, every generation in America has to fight this battle again because there's a strong, and by the way, it's true of other nations too. If you read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, he talks about in Sweden, there's a whole bunch of Nazis, real Nazis that were in the Nazis before. They're still there and they want to raise a Nazi party, just like they're doing in Germany and Austria and Britain and everywhere. Everybody has a far-right party that's rising now. And they always have had them. It's not like you ever stamped them out. It's like a disease that doesn't go away.
But when the wind of the right blows, it blows all over the world.
Now it's happening.
It's
And
during the Reagan era also, there was a Thatcher in the UK. There was was not the SPD in Germany. There was the CDU. Kohl. So there was the wind of the right is
Yes, so anyway, they're now deporting this guy, and he promises many more to come, and the universities are freezing hiring and panicking because he's blocking all the funds to the universities, and he's probably going to, and he claims he's going to punish them even more if they don't help him find people. And the same thing for states and cities that don't help ICE find immigrants to deport. Like there's sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like California and New York, and he wants to punish them by saying you have to help ICE agents find people, and if you don't, I'll cut off the funds to your states. So this is Trump's big thing. It's what he tried to do to Ukraine in his first term. He thinks he has the ability to refuse to distribute money that Congress has allocated. He does not have that right, but he's doing it right now, and the courts haven't stopped him yet. But they may. I mean, the courts already are trying to stop him from deporting this guy. But anyway, it's a real important time. I mean, it affects colleges very directly.
Colombia has already experienced, I don't know if it's related with this specific case, about $400 million of funds.
Yeah, and I think the state of California still never got any money for the LA wildfires. Because I think Trump is freezing, and he also denied it to red states. The red state had a flood, and he won't give them either. He wants to end FEMA. So the federal government no longer gives the state any help when they have a national disaster. But he's not replacing it with something else, so the states just don't have any money, which is the way all of this Doge stuff is. They just turn off all the money and don't have any replacement, don't have any transition period, so people are just waiting for the money. In fact, that's one big issue. When he shut down U.S. aid, there's a whole bunch of people that already did the work and are not getting paid.
They restored it back to 80%, right?
What about 80%? No, they didn't restore anything.
They came in the project restored 80% of the videos.
They lied. Like they claimed that like Elon Musk claimed that he turned back on the project to stop Ebola, but he didn't. They just lie and say they restored the money, but they didn't. The money didn't flow. So it's in court, and a court judge ordered them to send the money, and the money still didn't flow. They want to take it to the Supreme Court. So we'll see. There are a lot of court battles underway, but it'll take probably about a year for them to resolve. And in that time, they can do all this stuff, which is... Well, yeah, the next election will matter, but the courts will matter before that. But I mean, that's all the plan. That's why they did it so fast. Well, that's the issue. They might just ignore the courts. And then we've got...
Congress can do something. Congress not doing anything.
Yeah, well, there is a 90-day period passing right now where they are deciding whether to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law. And if he does that, he really can do pretty much anything for a while. And he almost did it last time over the Rodney King riots. And this time he can just declare an emergency, and for something like 90 days he can have martial law. So, this is probably going to keep getting worse. But then then we'll see what happens. I think we'll gradually get back to normal because I think the courts will block everything. And I think the next election will wipe out the Republicans because they are so scared they aren't even having town halls anymore. And Bernie Sanders is going into all the red districts and getting auditoriums full of people madder than hell to hear him preach far left socialism and say this is garbage. He's very good at that.
But it's not advertised, I mean, because these Democrats are missing
Yeah.
in action.
Most of them are. Well, most of them are because, of course, if all you want to do is win, you don't have to do anything. Just tread water and watch Trump destroy himself. But this is a time when you could also make your name for yourself by speaking up, and that's what Bernie is doing. There's a couple of them doing it, but most of them are just taking the wait-and-see attitude because that's what Napoleon said. Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake.
They have 2 years of time until
Yeah.
midterm
They do.
elections. And in 2 years, you can talk to people. So
Well, you
the
could.
strategy of Bernie,
You
I think,
could,
is the best.
but if you want to win the midterms, probably the most logical move is to just do nothing, because the Republicans are destroying their own support. So if the Democrats just wait, it will probably fall into their hands. If the only thing you care about is winning, that's the thing to do. But if you actually have principles or something, then you do like what Bernie's doing. But the fact is, the number of politicians with principles is maybe 1% on either side.
Okay, so probably I'm not considering.
Those are unemployed politicians.
Yeah, this is the difference between amateurs and professionals, really. I mean, the professionals. Anyway, so I'm going to stop talking about the news. Let's go
Politics.
get back to the official.